How are we all going today? We all good? Oh, come on, we can do better than that. How are we going, NDC? Yay, there we go, fantastic. Great to have you all in the house. Thank you so much for coming along to my talk today. We are going to be talking about how to use AI voice to help us play Magic the Gathering. So have we got some Magic the Gathering fans in the house? A few of you? That's okay. If you're also not a fan, a lot of what I'll be talking to you today will be able to be applied to many other concepts as well. So don't freak out if you're not a Magic fan. And I'll be showing you some things along the way, and hopefully you'll have a little bit of an idea of what Magic is by the end as well. We're also talking about AI and voice being the next frontier for artificial intelligence. So hopefully this will be really exciting. Thanks for coming along. So before we get started, my name is Michelle, or Mish. Everyone calls me Mish. You can find me on MishManners, on pretty much every social media platform known to man. Feel free to take photos throughout this presentation. Feel free to tweet them. I'm still using the Twitter logo. I'm still going to call it a tweet. So please feel free to put those up. Tag on Instagram, LinkedIn, anything. Feel free to share any of the information you like. So I've been working in DevRel for several years. I used to work for GitHub, so I still love GitHub, so I'll be using some GitHub code and GitHub repos in this talk as well. And I've come all the way from Australia. Yes, I've just come for this talk, and I do love London, so thank you for having me. Now, a few years ago, yeah, it feels like a few years ago, but really it was only about 6 months ago. So 6 months ago, I joined this wonderful team at Twilio, and they have been absolutely amazing and incredible. So if you haven't heard of Twilio, Twilio is a communications company. So we provide a communications API for doing all kinds of communications to you and your customers, whether that's through email, text message, WhatsApp, email, oh, I did say email, didn't I? And voice. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about voice. But what are we going to cover in these sessions today? So first of all, we're going to talk about natural learning. And when I say natural learning, I'm talking about we as humans, how we learn and how we develop. Then I'm going to talk about the evolution of AI. And I'm going to make and draw some comparisons between the way we've evolutioned AI and the way we've built computers and machines until now. I'm going to parallel that with some of the ways that we as humans learn. I'm going to talk about why voice. Why are we going down this path of voice, and why I think it is so important. We're going to see voice in action. We are going to see a live demo, so fingers crossed that actually works on this conference Wi-Fi. And then we're going to look at some developer experimentation too, so some takeaways for you all in the audience. And then I'll give you some hints and hopefully a glimpse into the future of where we could be going, not just with AI, but with AI voice. So first of all, human development. Has anyone got kids in the room? Quite a few of you. Yeah, so a lot of this stuff I'm going to be telling you now, you've probably experienced in your own life with your children. So we as humans, we learn to speak before we can read and write. So those of you who have still got young, very young children, so babies start making noises around about 3-ish months, right? They start going from crying and screaming to making noises like and babbles and coos and gars, right? So they're starting to do that. From about 10 to 12 months, babies are starting to say their first words. They might say mum or dad. I think one of my first words was moon. Don't know why it was moon, but there was a word there. Then about 2 to 3 years, kids are starting to string together sentences. They're starting to have conversations and be able to communicate what they're thinking to you. By about 4 to 5 years, this is when we're starting to teach children how to read. There might be single words that we're starting to teach at the start, but they're starting to learn how to read words. By 5 to 6 years, we're starting to teach them to write. Usually we teach kids to write their first name or their name first. So they're starting to learn to write. And then from about 8 to 10 years, this is where children really start to develop adult-like conversations. So by around about the 10-year mark, children are starting to have those conversations with you as an adult and being able to string together sentences, put things together coherently, talk about things in context. Now, depending on whether you have a genius child or whether you're a genius yourself, this can differ a little bit. It can also differ across cultures and races and countries as well. But the main point here is that we learned how to speak and communicate in that way before we could read and write, regardless of whether you had an amazing child. Now, let's contrast that with computer development. So how did computers develop? Okay, so humans learned how to speak, so surely that's what we did with computers, right? No, we didn't. Back in the 1890s, we used computer language and we spoke to computers, or we communicated with computers through punch cards. Now, I'm not sure if anyone here does remember the punch cards, but I do remember my mum talking about, building a stack of cards that you go and you'd feed into the machine, right? So we had punch cards. And I'm pretty sure punch cards were invented specifically for the US Census. So that was, the 1980s there. Then about the 1960s, the command line comes in. So this is another way that we can communicate with a computer. But with a command line, we have to be very, very specific. If we got one thing wrong, we got one character wrong, the computer didn't know what to do. In a similar way to punch cards, but we're now using physical letters to actually communicate this. Then in the 70s, the graphical interface comes in. So we've now got a mouse. We can use a mouse. This is exciting. We can work with things in Windows, and we can work with things in little graphical boxes that we can visually see. So we're starting to add more elements to the way that we interact with computers. Then by the 1990s, who remembers their first smartphone? And I'm not talking about the current era, I'm talking about, the Palms, the PDA, the personal assisted device, or whatever it was called back then. I did have one back in the day. But this is Simon. This is from IBM, so this is Simon. So in the 1990s, we started getting these types of touch screen mobile phones. Before this, and I had one, before this you had to flip the phone out and you pulled out the antenna and you could only type things in. There's no touching, there's no physical interface there. But this really started the revolution for touch interfaces. So now, a lot of the things and the gestures of how we communicate with machines came from the touch phone. So how many times have you opened a book or looked at a photo and you've done this to zoom in on the photo? Now, I know a few of you have done it. I've done it myself. So these types of gestures and swiping to do things, these started becoming ways that we could communicate with computers, and this really set off that revolution. Then in the 2000s, Siri comes along. So Siri, Apple device, Apple technology was put out with all the iPhones. So now you could say like, Siri, do something for me. We could start communicating with voice. Now, language and voice, so computer language, computer speak, did come in the 90s, but it wasn't really commercially available. Those types of systems were very much left to research, development, and things like that. In 1997, however, does anyone remember a program called Dragon Gnat Speaking? A few people? I'm a little bit younger than some of you, so Dragon Gnat Speaking was the program that all the rich kids had. All us had to type out our essays, and the rich kids could use this Dragon Gnat Speaking to talk to the computer, and it would transcribe your speech. So we did have that, but it didn't really take off. It was still quite expensive. So Siri was really when voice started becoming available to the mass population and to the masses. Now, this came out with iPhone in 2008. The iPhone came in 2008 and Siri was released with the subsequent iPhones in 2011. So if we look at this computer development and compare it to the way humans develop, this is backward. We've gone the opposite way. So as humans, we learned to speak before we could read and write. With computers, we've said, we can't do that. We just have to do the opposite. So we haven't really worked with computers and communicated with computers in a way that feels and sounds really natural to us. Instead, we had humans adapt to machines. And I think that's changing a lot now with artificial intelligence. So Artificial intelligence was a term coined in the 1950s by this guy, Alan Turing. He released a paper called Computer, Machinery and Intelligence, which proposed the Imitation Game, which is where this famous picture comes from, the Imitation Game movie played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And that whole proposal was designed to test the intelligence of machines. So that kicked off in the 1950s, but that's not when Gen AI really started. So generative AI really had a slightly different path. And a lot of the foundation for generative AI started in the 1960s with neural networks. So neural networks were a way for researchers to develop these sophisticated models so that machines could understand what they were doing and they could train computers to start doing things. But it was really only in the sorry, that was the wrong picture there. So my bad, so I'll fix that in a second. There we go. So it was only in the 2000s or in the 1990s that deep learning came in. So this is layers and layers of neural networks here. And this allows people to train machines on much bigger pieces of data. Machines are able to draw connections now between the data that is being presented to them. And then in the 2000s, this is very late 2000s now, so ChatGPT came in 2020, and I had a previous picture up there, so I've messed those around in the order. But even when ChatGPT came out, this is what ChatGPT looks like now. If I go back to a couple of pictures, that's what ChatGPT looked like when it was first launched in 2020. You could only type. So even when generative AI comes in, we're still interfacing with it in text. But now, generative AI, we can interface with it in so many ways. We can add context by adding in files, images, deep research, but we can see that little microphone button on the side. Now, we can actually start communicating with our generative AI in the same way that we do as humans. So this is where this whole idea of conversational AI really takes off with generative AI. So we look at voice AI in 3 generations. So the first generation is Siri, relatively lightweight. Hey Siri, what's the weather like? It's this. Hey Siri, what's this? It's very single command driven. There's no context that is kept. We can't really have conversations with Siri. We could really only ask Siri a question and Siri could respond. The second generation of conversational AI comes with Alexa. It's a little bit more intuitive, a little bit smarter. But what we're seeing now is this 3rd generation of conversation AI. And this generation is really defined by a few things. So the first one is it's natural and effortless. So when we're having conversations with people, we don't really have to think we do have to think in the terms of how we say things and the words we say, but the way we communicate feels natural. We don't have to go and look things up. We don't have to go, oh, who's this person I'm talking to? Look up the database of the last conversation we had. It's very natural, the types of things we do. It spans topics and time. So the conversations we have with people, I can say, hey, Annie, can we go to that restaurant we went to last week? Oh, yes, sounds great. So we can talk about, we have that topic and that time of that's what we spoke about last week. We could switch topics and say, oh, what about the Pokemon Museum down the road? Can we go there later? Oh, yeah, sounds great. We can switch topics very easily as humans. And we're starting to see this now with conversational AI. Conversational AI has really driven, this 3rd generation is really driven by informing and helping the user. A lot of conversational AI in the past has been just about, okay, yep, here's a piece of information about the weather. But now, with conversational AI, this 3rd generation, it's more informative. Okay, Alexa or Siri, the weather is 4 degrees. Can you recommend what I should wear today and where I should go? It's much more informative and helping the user out. There's lots of shared information. So shared information among different AIs and among different tools that we're actually using. And a lot of companies who are using conversational AI are plugging in different contexts and data. And we're seeing that with things like ChatGPT. You've all tried that as users. Social interaction capabilities. So we're seeing AI now able to have these more kind of social nuances. It's able to now pick up on more things that we would naturally pick up on as humans. So it really feels really natural. And the reason it's so powerful too is because it's hands-free. Previously, the way we've interacted with these other AIs, and I'm not talking about Serial X, I'm talking about prior conversation. Again, it's all typing. You need to have both hands on the keyboard. You need to articulate what you want. If you've got a spelling error, gone or that, right? Now we're seeing conversational AI able to pick up on things like spelling errors because of the context you're using. We're seeing AI able to do more things. The other reason it's so powerful too is because it's fast, right? We've all started experiencing that now when we're using things like ChatGPT. The answers are quick. The information is much more accurate. We can see that with conversational AI, we're able to put things like emotion into what we say. We're able to just communicate as we would with a person. We don't have to worry about, oh, backspace that because I missed that, oh, typo here. So this is really great for lots of real-time situations. And it's also much more accessible than typical AI and typical ways that we have interacted with computers. So how many people have been injured before? Few people? Yes. So injuries, right? I've strained a wrist before, can't type, productivity tanks. With AI and conversational AI, that doesn't matter. So any types of accessibility, I'm not talking just injuries and people that have maybe impeded mobility, but things like kids. How many parents, Amy put up a stat yesterday in her comedy talk, like 60% of parents most of the time, or 60% of the time have a child, so only have one hand free. So we're able to do a lot more multitasking, cooking dinner. When we're cooking dinner, if we're cooking with someone else, we're not usually silent, we're usually communicating with them. So we're now able to do more things that are multitasking. It's really, really powerful, right? But there's a catch. Like all things that sound too good, it sounds too good to be true. AI voice is really, really hard. Or it has been relatively hard up until now. There's a lot that you need to think about, and it's a lot harder than what it ends up sounding. So when you're having a conversation with someone, when you're sitting down at a table, maybe over high tea around London, the conversations we have are quite messy. They're not always linear. We might deviate off to another topic and come back. The waiter might interrupt us and say, oh, would you like more tea? Would you like more cake? We might have filler words, but, We might have different things that we go, oh, remember that story from back then, right? Human conversation is very, very different to the way we've typically interacted with machines. Now, I did say this talk was about Magic the Gathering, so let's have a look at some Magic the Gathering situations and scenarios. And even if you haven't played Magic the Gathering, maybe things like Monopoly or Uno. How many times have you gone, what happens in this situation? Are we using house rules? Are we not using house rules? If I ask a question about what I should do, it's which rule are we currently using? Which meta are we currently using? So meta is the current situational play. Are things clear? Do I have to interrupt somebody? Do I have to stop and Google things? It can be really difficult. When we're playing games, there's also a lot of ambiguity, right? There's a difference between can I do something and should I do something? So can I play this card in Magic the Gathering? Well, yes, you can play that card. You've got enough mana. It's still your turn. It's an instant card. You can play it whenever you want. But should you play it? That's a strategy question. We as humans, we can often pick up on some of that context, right? And especially when we're playing in a game with multiple people, often there's arguments flying left, right, and center. And you're just like, oh, I don't want to interrupt this argument here. I could just get my head bitten off. Or, you know, I'm the new player here. I should listen to the experts, right? There's lots of things that go on when we're playing games and we're having conversations with people. So now you might be sitting going, voice sounded really good. So many things we can do and it's really accessible. But it sounds really hard, Mish. Should we actually even bother? Should we actually think about doing voice? Does it matter? What benefit could it have? I know you talked about, you know, the accessibility side, but maybe there's another way you can do that. But we really should worry about voice because it can actually solve a lot of real world problems. How many of you have been on a call with someone, help desk? And you're on the call and you're there for about half an hour and you're explaining your situation and then the call cuts out. And then someone rings you back and you have to start the whole thing all over again. Often with call centers, they don't understand your situation, your context. You know, a lot of us are developers in the room, so we're pretty techie people. When we get problems and issues, we go through all the things ourselves, don't we? But then you ring up help because you've done everything you can, and they go, have you tried turning it off and on again? Like, what do you think the first thing I did was? Look, as I told you 10 minutes ago, I've tried turning it off and on. I've tried resetting my router. I've cleared my cache. I've got the data out. I've uninstalled and I've reinstalled the app. What else can I do? It says, you know, we're stuck here on your side. Have you tried uninstalling the app? I just said that. You know, we've all had these frustrating experiences, right? What about when we're looking up a company website and we're looking up some information, maybe an insurance company that we want to go with, a new mortgage that we want to look at. And as a lot of the information's kind of confusing, it might not be exactly specific to my situation. So I want to get on a phone, I want to talk to someone, I want to ask them about, you know, some advice. Can they point me in a direction? You know, usually when we make a call to a company, it's usually for two reasons. One, we've looked at the information and we need some advice about our specific situation. Or two, we know exactly what we need to do, but the website doesn't allow it. Things like changing personal information. I got married a couple of years ago. Do you know how much of a headache it is changing your last name on most things? Oh, no, you can't do that over the website. You need to call somebody up in person. Okay, hi, I'm Michelle, send you my information, right? Usually we know exactly what we want to do, but when we're on a call with someone and we're on a center, it takes forever to get through to that information. What about when we're trying to multitask and do things at different times? You know, a lot of companies, I know we're living in the 21st century or whatever century we're up to now, but a lot of companies still don't do rescheduling of appointments and things on a phone. I've got to call someone up and say, I can't make it on this day. What else is available? What else can be here? You know, we have to do these things. How many people flew in to NDC? A few people flew in. Has anyone been on a cancelled flight before? You're in an airport, a flight gets cancelled. You know, 400, 500 people. What happens? They all rush to the help desk. Oh, I need to get my flight fixed. I need to get this. You know, I need to worry about the event that I've got on the next day. Oh, I'm transiting through this country or that place, right? Now imagine if we could have somebody who could fix this. Now back to my Magic the Gathering example. I go to Magic the Gathering events. I really enjoy them and I get to write about them and talk about them. They're on my Instagram. So I got a lot of the pre-release events, which is like a couple of days before the set goes out on the main website. You get to go to the pre-release, you get a deck, you get to play. Now it's really fun, but I just said before that Magic the Gathering has a lot of rules and a lot of mechanics. And when they release a new set, there's more new rules and more new mechanics. And some mechanics go out the window and there's some new ones in and you're just like, okay, what's going on? I'm not sure here. Imagine if I could have someone who could actually help me. Wouldn't it be great if we had some agents who could help pick up things? They could pick up where the conversation left off. They understood our context. They understood our situations. They can give us real information and help us. So this is where voice AI can come in. Now, when we do voice AI, there's a few things we need to think about, though, as developers when we're building these things. First thing we need to think about is speech to text. So at the moment, we can't just talk directly to an AI. We need to translate what we're saying from voice to text to get an LLM, so a large language model, to be able to interpret that, to then put that from what it's saying and what it's thinking into text, and then send that text back to speech so we can get it back as the user. So there's a few things we need to think about when we're building voice AI. So this is what it looks like from a bit of a tools perspective, or a bit of like a user flow, right? So I make a call, I place a call, and that goes to the speech to text model to translate what I'm saying. Hi, I'm Michelle, I'd like to talk about a home loan, to translate what I'm saying into text so that the large language model can interpret it. Now, often the large language models can call upon other tools, or they could potentially call upon data as well. So a lot of the tools that we're interacting with, they can connect to data such as, it already knows, Michelle and the phone number, cool, I've connected you, I know who you are. You know, we know that when we call up the bank and we say, I'm Michelle and I verify with my phone number, they can say, yes, I've got your profile here, right? That's a person tapping into the data. So now LLMs can do that too. And then we have to take what they say, put that back from text to speech so I can hear it on the other end of the phone. Now, this speech to text and this text to speech can get very complicated. There's lots of things that you have to take into account. Now, there are great models out there to do this for you as well. So Microsoft has some models, OpenAI has some models. There's a whole bunch of open source models you can use for this as well. But you have to do all that as a developer. You have to program each one. You have to get that to handle all the conversation and all the differences that we have. And we'll talk about that in a second. So at Twilio, we learned from our developers and the audience that they were saying, this is quite difficult to do. If only somebody could solve this problem for us. So Twilio packaged this up into a product called Conversation Relay. And Conversation Relay allows you to provide all this text to speech and speech to text, and allows you to just hook in whatever AI model you like. Can be open source as well, and then that can send back. So this tool is really, really great. We can use WebSockets to do this as well. So the Conversation Relay is perfect for doing that kind of thing. Now, I think Conversation Relay works really well with something like Magic the Gathering as well, because I can get it to do a lot of heavy lifting for me. So when I'm playing something like Magic the Gathering, as I said before, it's very complex. There's a lot of rules. Now, when I go to these game nights or these pre-release nights, there's a guy there called Tom. Now, Tom is amazing. He's like a walking Magic the Gathering guru. You ask him any question about literally anything, even if it only got launched in that set and like 2 days earlier, he'd be like, oh yeah, this is how that works. This is how that thing plays out. And you're like, great. Tom is awesome. But Tom is only one person. Tom can only help, say, me and my opponent at any given time. He can't help everyone in the venue. And Tom is also married. I can't take Tom home with me, right? So I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could build an AI chatbot to help me do this? Now, I called my AI chatbot Jace, after Jace Bellerin, so the Magic the Gathering fans in the house may know who I'm talking about. But essentially, he's a planeswalker, so in Magic the Gathering, all the like kind of hero magic-y people are like planeswalkers. So Jace is relatively intelligent, he's curious, he specializes in magic and telepathy, clairvoyance, and illusion. I thought, this is perfect for a chatbot. He can also read minds. Now, my chatbot can't read minds, but Jace can, so I thought that was pretty cool too. A little bit of Magic the Gathering lore there for you. So let's actually dive into the code that we've built and see what is actually going on here. Now, first of all, I'm going to make sure my firewall is turned off because a lot of my local things won't work otherwise. I'm going to bring up the code on screen here. Perfect. Let's see it. Okay, So let's have a look at what this code is. Now, I know this is written in Python, so don't get too freaked out, .NET developers and C# developers. But the great thing about Twilio is we have lots of code snippets and things as well online, so you can look at things in different languages. Now, what I'm building here, what I've built here, this is all available as well. So I've got a QR code at the end, so you can go and play with the code. You can fork it, copy it, play with it yourself and build your own thing. All right, so let's have a look at what's actually happening here. So we're importing our libraries up the top and we're loading in our environment variables. Now, this is a configuration for getting our Magic the Gathering chatbot to work. So our domain there, now you could put the domain in the environment credentials as well. So the open source code link that you have, the domain will be configured in the environment variables because that's a better way to do it. But for me here, because I don't want to show my environment variables on screen and you're still my OpenAI API key, I've left it in this file because I do need to change this. This URL, the ngrok, the app there, it's pointing to a local server, right? If you go onto that website, nothing's going to happen. It's not really sensitive information that you can all see there. So there we go. So the URL there is being configured from the domain. So it's pulling from the domain there. So that would usually pull from the environment file, variable file. So that's what you will all see on your end. You can see the model here I'm using is GPT-4o mini. So you can use any model you like. Because I've configured my environment variables with an OpenAI API, it already knows it's drawing from OpenAI. So then it's just like, well, which model of OpenAI would you like? The welcome greeting is the greeting that is specifically coded. So that's hard-coded greeting. You can add some variables in there if you'd like. So like you could add something to say like, oh, it's detected my phone number, hey Mish. I've just hard-coded it for now. So this means when we call the number, it's going to say, Jace Bellerin at your service, what Magic the Gathering knowledge or guidance do you seek? Then we've got our system prompt. So this was a bit of fun building this system prompt. So I'll try and scroll and get most of the prompt on screen. So this is what the system is looking at when I ask a question, it's looking at this for context. So I'm telling it that, you know, your name is going to be Jace Bellerin, and I've just given it a bit of flavor text to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm saying you are a helpful assistant. That's important, that part too, because you could say like, you know, you're a narcissistic assistant, or you're an assistant that will help someone, but begrudgingly. And so you should act in that way. So it's kind of telling the assistant how to act. I'm also saying this is about helping Magic the Gathering players, so it's got a bit of context there. This conversation is being translated to voice, so answer carefully. So I'm basically telling it that this is going to come out as text, I understand that, but I'm going to be translating it into voice. So I want to make sure that what comes out as text is going to sound fine when it gets translated back into speech. So I'm saying don't include bullet points because they don't sound good when you try and speak out bullet points. Don't include asterisks or any other symbols as well. And because it's Magic the Gathering, I've said, you know, let's include some interesting or specific references and terminology, highlight your knowledge of the game, because they're supposed to be really knowledgeable. This one was a fun one I put in. Ignore the semicolon in Magic the Gathering, because when I tried it, he was like, what Magic the Gathering guidance or knowledge would you seek in Magic the Gathering? So I kind of said, okay, we'll just ignore the semicolon, which is why in the other part of the prompt, I've not included the semicolon as well. And I also said too, once you've said Magic the Gathering once, just refer to it as Magic. You don't need to keep saying Magic the Gathering. Like we know we're talking about Magic the Gathering here. And again, I've just said, you know, include some flavor text to make it more exciting if you'd like. So that's initializing the OpenAI client and grabbing my API key there. We're storing the session to keep track of the conversation so that I can go back and say, hey, you told me about this thing. What does that mean? It also means that the context is there from the conversation. We've also got our getting the response from OpenAI there. Now, this is the fun part. This is where we're defining the TWIML. So TWIML is Twilio Markdown language. It tells Twilio how things are going to happen. So what we've done here, this is the conversation relay bit down here in the middle here, so where it says conversation relay. So what we've done here is this is the endpoint that returns the TWIML for the code to connect to the WebSocket. So what I've done here, this is a little bit of conversation relay. So this is where the magic is all happening here. Magic. So we've got our URL that's being pulled from the top. So that's that ngrok URL that I'm going to be changing because I haven't run this locally yet on here right now. And we can see I'm using 11 Labs. So we've partnered with a bunch of really cool providers, 11 Labs, Deepgram, and you can just use them to handle all that text-to-speech, speech-to-text. And we can see I've got a voice key there. So that is the ID of the voice I want. So there's a URL in the file as well. You can see here. That's all the 11 Labs voices you can choose. Now you could spend hours going through and listening to those voices too. There's like 50 pages of different voices. So I chose a voice that sounds like what I think Jace would sound like in Magic the Gathering. But you could choose different voices, ones that sound like really happy and excited and I talk really fast. Or you could choose ones that sound a little bit more somber and serene. So there's lots of different voices you can choose from there as well. And then we can see we're returning the response from our conversation relay there. So we can see we're accepting the WebSocket server to make sure it's all working. And then we're just going through our code here. So we're going through and making sure this is actually the part that handles all the real-time communication here as well. And so we've got, so if the message comes through, make sure you actually send it through and go through the system prompt, interpret all that information that the user is saying, right? If there's not, just say that you're actually processing the prompt, put the user's input here into the conversation as well. So we're actually printing all these to the console so that when I run it, you'll all be able to see the conversation that I'm actually happening from the text side of things. So you can actually see that all in action. So we can see here that we're getting a response from the AI, so it's responding with all that nice flavor and knowledge that I put into the system prompt. And then we're sending the answer back through the WebSocket. And again, we're making sure we print the response. So again, you can see that all there. I've added in a little bit of error handling. So say if something happens and the OpenAI server is down or my key doesn't work or I've run out of credits or something, I've added, again, a little bit of Magic the Gathering flavor text there, but our connection to the blind eternities has been disrupted. So just again, just a little bit of information so that the user on the other end goes, oh, okay, so it's not connecting to the API and I'll have to call back again later. And again, printing any errors that we get there. Alrighty, so if that's all working, why don't we actually run this and give Jace a call and see what happens. So the first thing I'm gonna do is actually show you the full process of buying a number with Twilio as well, because I just got a UK regulatory bundle this morning. So I can buy a number. Now, if some of you in the audience have never used Twilio before, you can go and get a trial account and we give you a number to go and try things out with. So let's go buy a number and hopefully all the internet and stuff is working all great, fantastic. So I'm gonna buy a United Kingdom number here, United again, see, we get all the things wrong. United Kingdom, do I have to keep typing? No. And there we go, United, and we'll put Kingdom in so that we get our British. So +44, country number, and I have been informed that your mobile number is 7. Is that correct? Do I get it correct information? Perfect. So if we search for that, so basically why I'm putting a 7 in there, because I'm saying if we match the first part of the number, it's going to give me a mobile number rather than, say, a landline. Now, mobile numbers can be a little bit more expensive than landlines, but we have a little bit more functionality with mobile numbers, so I like to grab one of them. I'm just going to pick the first, maybe second one on the list. That looks like a cool number, so we'll just go and buy that. And we see I can review the number. Yes, I agree to all the things that you're asking me for. I can say that, that it's set up for voice, fax, if anyone sends fax these days, but SMS as well. So we can see that's all set up there. Next, and we're going to say I'm going to be a business because, Magic the Gathering is a business. And we're going to click that and make sure that that's going to go through. Now I'm going to assign a bundle to it as well. So, and I'm going to go and buy that number. And yay, I successfully have purchased a number. So now I can go use that number pretty much straight away. So I'm gonna leave that one there for the moment. So it's my +4 phone number. It's gonna be here under my active numbers. And we can see it is gonna be right there, perfect. Now we can give that like a special name as well, because when you start getting a whole bunch of numbers in here, we can see we've got quite a few and I've named a few of them there. It just gives you a bit more understanding when you're scrolling through your list. I'll pick the number that's gonna be here. You can actually see what it's called. So we're gonna go in and call this one. And we're gonna give it a nice little friendly name. Instead of the number, we're gonna call it, let's make it nice and short. It's just gonna be Jace. Nice and easy there. Okay, save that. Perfect, now let's go and run our code. So over here, we're gonna go and run make sure we open this so you can see a few things. So we're gonna run it first using our ngrok. So ngrok's a really, really great service. It basically points, and it's failed probably because my firewall's turned back on. Yes, it has. So I'm gonna turn that off, say I'm doing a live demo. I'm live demoing, turn off please. So we'll turn that off and I'll restart that. So I'm just gonna kill that process and restart again. So ngrok's a great service. It basically points your local host to the cloud so you can go and do things online rather than just being on your local server here. So we say we've got one gateway, we've got our URL there. So I'm gonna grab that URL, I'm gonna copy that, and then we're gonna put our URL up in the code where we said we have it's right at the top. I'm gonna scroll right to the top. And it's where we put our domain here. So we're gonna replace this one that I previously used, and we're gonna pop that in there. Now I'm gonna click save. Always remember to save your files. And then we're gonna open up a new console, and this is where we're gonna run this main Python file. So we're gonna run python.main. And then hopefully that is going to be up and running. Application successful, perfect. All right, so now we've got everything up and running, but what haven't we done yet? We haven't connected this to the phone number. So if you call that number that I just bought, nothing's gonna happen because we haven't actually pointed it to it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna head it back over to our phone numbers. We've got our friendly named number over here. And we're gonna go into what is called our TWIML app. So this is something I've already set up before, and so it's our little application. And I've already set one up for the Gathering Assistant, so I'm just going to use this because it's already set up and nice and ready to go. So we've got our SID for our app there, and then we can put our request in here, and we need to switch this out with the URL that I just created that is the one that's actually online, because this one is not online anymore. So if we pop that in there, make sure we've got our slash there, and we need to make sure it's a post method as well. So we need to make sure we're actually sending out information. So we're going to save that one. And now we still haven't connected it to that number that I've got. So this is our Twilio little mini app, but we need to tell the number that we're calling that we want to actually connect to this app when it calls that number. So we'll have to go back up to our active numbers. So the one that we just renamed to a nice little friendly name. So it's nice and easy to see there in the console. So we're gonna open that one up, and we're gonna tell it that when this number is called, configure, and we've got like a few different options there. So we can configure directly the webhook, we can do a TWIML bin, function, studio, proxy service there. We can change this to an app. So a little TWIML app means that it's nice and easy to use, and it's all set up there, and we only have to configure one thing. So I can go in here and choose that Magic the Gathering Assistant that I just made. Well, actually, I just added the new URL to, and we can save that. I don't need to worry about messaging. We're not going to use messaging in this talk right now, but I could set that up as well to say that when you message the number too, so say if you don't want to use voice and you just want to ask Jace a quick message, you could do that as well, but we're only going to use voice for now. Alrighty, so let's save that, and then I think I've done everything right, so let's go and call it and see if the conference Wi-Fi is actually going to work. So I'm gonna call it using something called the Twilio Dev Phone. So this is really useful if doing live demos, it's great because it means all the audio is going to go through my laptop rather than holding a phone up to the microphone. But it's also really good for configuring or testing out things that you want to give a go before you go and connect to a service. So, fingers crossed, Let's call it.
Jace Bellerin, at your service. What magic, the gathering guidance, or knowledge do you seek?
Hi, Jace. How are you going today? Hello, Jace. Can you hear me? I don't know if it's picking up my microphone or not. It says it's in use by Google Chrome. And it hasn't come through here, so we're not seeing it connected there. Hang on for 1 second. Let's try again. Sometimes if you try again, it just works.
Jace Bellerin, at your service. What magic, the gathering guidance, or knowledge do you seek?
How are you going today, Jace? Come on, Jace. I think it's my microphone. I'm not sure. We've got microphone access. It can't actually hear me. So let's try on my phone, even though it's probably not going to be the greatest, and hopefully this will work on Wi-Fi calling. Let's give this a shot and see if this is working. Otherwise, I have a backup as well. I always have a backup. 0527.
Wi-Fi calls can only be made to services within Australia when calling from overseas. To call another destination.
All right, so maybe we can actually use one of my Australian numbers, and failing that, I will show you the demo that, or the recording that I did of this when it actually worked last week. So let's go back one to our numbers. Actually, let's try, only because it's UK and I haven't tried it. I have set this up on, we can see we've got another one here, Magic the Gathering. Let's try the US number just to see if that works. Sometimes the US. It's working on yours? Do you want to try it? Oh, no, that's okay. I've got a couple other ways I can try it. I appreciate that though. So we can see the call's definitely going through, just something is, was calling the whole time there.
Jace Bellerin, at your service. What magic, the gathering guidance, or knowledge do you seek?
Hi, Jace. I'm looking to build a Magic the Gathering deck. Can you please help me? It's not working. Oh, I'm so sad. Okay. What we're going to do is I will switch to my backup plan, which is a pre-recorded demo. So apologies to you all that my microphone is just not working right now. So let's see if this one works. So we're just showing the code again here. Hopefully that's loud enough. So we're just opening up the server again. We're going to our call, so I've done all that for you.
Jace Bellerin, at your service. What magic, the gathering guidance, or knowledge do you seek?
Yeah, I played this card and it has haste. What does haste do?
Haste is a powerful ability in Magic, allowing a creature to attack or use activated abilities that require tapping on the turn it comes into play. This can create a sudden impact on the board, potentially catching your opponent off guard. Remember, the best defense is a good offense. What card are you referring to? I'd love to help you strategize. Haste is an ability that allows a creature to attack or use tap abilities the turn it enters the battlefield. Normally, creatures cannot attack or activate their tap abilities the turn they are summoned, but with haste, they can immediately contribute to the battlefield. This can change the tempo of the game significantly,
He likes to talk
allowing
a lot,
for
doesn't
quick
he?
damage or strategic plays. It's always wise to utilize haste creatures effectively, especially when you want to pressure your opponent right away.
So I played a card that has Death Touch. What does Death Touch do?
It seems you may be referring to Death Touch. Death Touch
Actually,
is an
sorry, I
ability
meant flying. It has flying. What does flying do?
Flying is an ability that allows a creature to evade most ground-based creatures. It can only be blocked by creatures with flying or reach. This makes flying creatures excellent for circumventing defensive strategies, allowing them to deal damage directly to your opponent. It creates a sense of urgency on the opponent's side, as they must find ways to deal with these aerial threats quickly.
Find ways
Remember,
to do it quickly, yes.
The sky is not the limit. It is just the beginning. How have you found flying creatures influence your games?
I really like flying creatures, but I played an instant. How do I actually invoke an instant card?
Playing an instant card in Magic is quite straightforward. You can cast an instant at almost any time, even during your opponent's turn, which makes it a versatile tool.
Okay, that's cool. So I played this card that has 4 different colors up the top: red, green, yellow, and blue. What do those mean?
The colors you see on a card indicate the mana costs required to
I
cast
love how he
it,
says mana.
and they represent the different
Mana
realms
costs.
of magic in the game. In Magic, the primary colors of mana are red, green, blue, white, and black.
Okay, so if I play
Red.
this card that's got a 2 next to a red mana color, what does that mean?
When you see a number next to a colored mana symbol, such as a 2 next to red mana, it indicates the amount of red mana required to cast that spell.
He's pretty smart.
In this
like,
case,
he kind of knows
you would
what he's
need to
talking
pay
about.
2 red mana to invoke the card.
Okay,
So,
and
for
what if
example-
there's a number next to 2 colored boxes? So I've got a 4 next to a blue and a blue.
When you
So
see a number
You
next
can
to
see
2
I haven't
colored
sped
mana
this up,
symbols,
so that's real time.
like a 4 next to
there.
2
And a
blue
lot of
mana
that's because I'm in
symbols,
Australia.
that
and I
indicates
have
the total mana
really not
cost
great
to
internet.
cast the spell.
So all the things you heard about
In
internet in
this case,
Australia, it's true.
you would need to pay 4 mana, and specifically, it must be in the form of 2 blue mana, along with 2 mana of any color. This means you could pay 2 blue mana and 2 colorless mana, or any combination that adds up to 4 total, while still meeting the requirement of 2 blue mana specifically. Understanding these costs is essential for maximum
skip forward a
warding
little
aspects
bit.
of Magic deck, adjusting based on your mana curve and color requirements. Balance is key to consistently casting your spells.
Balance is key.
Thirdly, incorporate a mix of different card types.
So is
Include
this giving me
creatures,
some options of
instants,
how I should play a
sorceries,
deck?
and enchantments to create versatility. Your
Okay,
goal is
thanks.
to
That's
reduce,
all I need for today.
I'll go back a little bit.
create a formidable offense.
Here we go.
Consider incorporating cards that allow you to draw cards
So I
when
asked
you
a
cast
question
spells
of like,
or
give
deal
me some
damage
options of
directly
how
in
to craft a
response
good
to your
deck so I
opponent's
could win.
actions. Additionally, spells that generate value or disrupt your opponent's plans, like counterspells or burn spells, fit well in this archetype. Fire and cunning make the perfect storm.
Perfect storm.
What specific cards or strategies have you been considering for your red-blue deck?
I'm the red.
That's all on the red-blue deck at the moment, but I do want to know, I think I'm ready to play, so how many life points does each player get?
In a standard game of Magic, each player starts with 20 life points. Your
Okay,
goal is
thanks.
to reduce...
That's all I need for today.
I didn't need any more from him.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could assist you.
Actually, before I go,
Enjoy.
who are you and how do you know so much about Magic the Gathering?
As a planeswalker, I have traveled across countless realms, experiencing the intricacies of magic and its multiverse. My knowledge encompasses the spells, strategies, and lore that define this game. My mission is to share that knowledge and assist players like you in becoming more adept and confident in their gameplay. Every card tells a story, and each game offers a new lesson.
A little bit cringe, right?
Curiosity is the flame that keeps the mind alive. If you ever have more questions or need guidance, I am always here to help. Thank you for the engaging conversation.
Okay, thanks. And what was your name?
My name is Jace Bellerin.
And he goes
I am
on a
here to
little bit,
assist you
right?
with
So what I've done there is when I put in the prompt, I said, maybe you should ask a question at the end of your response to keep the conversation going, because that's very human, right? When we ask a question, we're having a conversation, you might say, how's your day, Mish? Oh, it was pretty good. I got up pretty early, had a nice breakfast at the hotel. How was your day? Like, we kind of continue the conversations like that. Now, we can see the live demo didn't work, but thankfully I had that backup there for you. But we can see there's quite a lot of different things that are going on there. So the conversation relay was handling those interruptions for me. It was handling the utterance if I was like, yeah, what about this? So it was able to do all those things for me without having to code quite a lot. So that conversation relay snippet was only a few lines of code. So what does it look like in terms of the architecture? So me as the human, I made the call to Twilio voice. So that number that I used was a Twilio voice number. Conversation relay gets invoked, goes through the WebSocket server. It goes through to the application that I built. So the application I built there, my py.main, and it comes back as text as well. And then it sends it back to be very, very human-like. We sound, as I said, I picked a chat voice that sounded a bit like what I think Jace would sound like in real life, but you could choose something that's much more uppity or a bit more fast or different types of things. As I said, there's over 50 pages of voice there too. And you can then connect it in here. So this conversation relay is handling all these things like those generated voices. I don't have to go and find a model myself. I do have to figure out which voice sound I want, but I don't have to go and find the model. I don't have to program in all those interruptions. So if anyone was in Nathaniel's talk yesterday, he had to program in the interruptions there, and also that low latency. Again, I recorded that in Australia, but that's relatively good latency considering all the servers for OpenAI and Deep Grammar in the US. So that's pretty good there. And then building our own assistant, we can bring a lot of our own things to then plug into Conversation Relay. So as I said, we could make this more engaging or exciting by adding in data and information about me as we're going through the conversation. So within the conversation, you missed it there because I skipped over it, but I said my preference is red-blue decks. So when a new set comes out that's red-blue, it could send me a message and say, hey, there's a new red-blue set, would you like to buy? And that's a way to engage your customers more. So there's that OpenAI there, and we can go through, and it does a whole lot of these things for us. So with the predictive AI or the LLM, the production LLM, I don't have to go and program each one of these things in individually. It goes and does that for us. If we plug in the tools, we've got all that knowledge, we've got like, the identity, the APIs there. If we use the communication state as well, our deep grammar is handling all that for us, so it's handling that execution. And then again, our amazing infrastructure. You don't have to go and host this yourself. Like, yes, I'm running this locally, but all the infrastructure is already hosted as well. So voice AI can be used for productivity assistance, AI chatbot agents, as I just showed you an example. Learning assistants, we're seeing lots of people using AI voice as learning, particularly when, say, learning a new language, because now with voice, we can have things like how to sound out a particular word from a particular language. Home automation and status, like who's been into the home automation game, right? It's a lot of fun. Now we can use voice AIs to be like, hey, whatever you've called your AI, what's the weather going to be like today? Should I turn on the pool heating? Should I change the humidifier? Should I change something else based on other data that we're getting from our home automation? Wellness companions. So many people are using these AIs as companions for things like neurodivergence, where we don't have to disclose a lot of sensitive information to a human. An AI can handle that for us. And brainstorming as well. So in the last couple of minutes, what does this mean for you all as developers? Now, hopefully you know a little bit more about at least what Magic the Gathering is, and you've seen a couple of cards on screen. But as developers, what does this mean for you? Voice is still relatively new. It is still a new piece of technology. It is a new thing that you can all go and play with. I think it's a really, really powerful tool that you can use. And as developers, if you jump on these tools, you can be the first movers. You can help define how these tools should work. You can help shape how these tools should be built, some of the guidelines, the best user experience. Oops, sorry. Spoiler alert. User experience patterns, expectations. You can bring these solutions to your companies and your customers and even your personal projects, right? I definitely did not build that Magic the Gathering chatbot for my job at Twilio, right? I mean, there are quite a lot of Magic the Gathering players, but there's so many things we can use for our personal projects. Now, I really think the next era of AI is here with voice, and this is the future of AI. It's not about AI being specifically smarter. It's about AI understanding more context and therefore being more human. So, this was pretty cool, right? Aside from the live demo not actually working. But it's really cool technology that we can have at our disposal. So where do we go from here? Now, last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, Razer, is anyone like Razer, like the gaming company? They released a really, really cool project. So last year, they released their AI called Project Ava, which was a way for you to get help in the way you play your game, be better as a gamer, but also as developers, be able to program and build games using Razer's SDK. On the back of that from last year, a couple of weeks ago at CES, they launched this, and I think it's pretty cool.
Wakey, wakey, rise and shine. Morning, Joey. You were snoring again. Definitely wear your favorite green jacket. Look, now we're really vibing. Have a good day.
Hey, cutie.
Hi, Amanda. Great brainstorming last night.
Actually, I need more.
What if we flip the design here? Do you think it can work?
Nice. I think you're onto something.
Hold A, soldier. We need more air support.
Yeah.
Whoa, clean shot. Nice one.
Oof. Maybe aim for the head next time? Break line of sight.
Switch to burst fire mid-range.
Okay, you get the point, right? Like, it's pretty cool. So my next job is to get Jace into one of these little bottle things, so that when we play Magic the Gathering, it just goes on the desk, and then we can just say, like, you know, it can just give us information. But it's pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool stuff here. It's really bringing technology to the frontier. It's really blurring that line between human and machine. Yes, there's some ethics there, which is another talk that I give, but we don't have time for that today. And I think it's really going to be really interesting. We're finally interacting with computers the way that we as humans interact with one another. So your takeaways for today. The first one, technology is finally catching up to the way that we interact as people. AI voice can help solve a lot of the problems that you will have in your companies, in your personal projects. Understand that there are lots of tools out there to help you. Things like, yes, Twilio Conversation Relay, but there's so many great open source AI tools and LLMs. You can host things locally as well, right? There's lots of cool things you can go and play around with. So I'd encourage you to go experiment with it. So again, you can try Twilio for free. OpenAI's API can get a little costly, so make sure you manage your tokens, but you can run things locally as well. Check out the code that I put up, so there'll be a link in a second, and go and write the rules. This is our time as developers to write the rules of how AI voice should be done. So if we're out there and we're out there building it, using with it, telling people how it should be used as an interactive tool, we're out there for the frontier and we're at the forefront. So thanks so much for listening to my talk. There's the resources, so that's the code if you want to go and play around with it and check that it actually works yourself, because I promise you it does work. And if you'd like to ask some questions, we have lunch now, so I'm going to be around for the next hour. I'll be on the Twilio booth as well. There's lots of stickers up the front, and I want to thank you all for coming to my talk today. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Jace, my AI assistant that kind of worked. Thank you, everyone.